In these tutorials and in class, we've already talked about a couple of ways to interact with data in Macs using physical hardware. We've used the keyboard with key and key up. We've used MIDI with MIDI in, note in, and control in. But we haven't touched on a couple of other types of devices that you can use. Let's start with the basic one, the mouse. Everyone's got one on their computer, either as a physical device or as the trackpad. So it's a really, really nice object. I'm going to use that by creating an object called Mousestate. Mousestate requires that we send it a message of pull to turn on outputting from Mousestate. So let's create a load mess, give it pull, and then connect that up. I'm just going to double click it to make sure that it's pulling. Now the outputs of Mousestate are button down. If it's 1, the button's down. If it's up, it's 0. Horizontal location, vertical location, and then the horizontal and vertical deltas. I'm really only concerned right now with the position. I don't really need the buttons right now, but it's a good option to know. I'm going to take a look at the horizontal and vertical position just by dropping a couple of floats here. You can see it's already changing horizontal. Oh yeah. And vertical as well. Now, something that is a little conceptually difficult if you haven't worked with computer graphics before is that typically a lot of people are introduced to XY coordinates in, say, algebra or geometry class, where you have a Cartesian plane, and in the center you have 0, 0. If you go to the left, then you go negative on the x-axis, but you stay at 0. If you go down, you go negative on the y-axis. That's not the case here. In fact, the upper left corner of my screen is 0, 0. That's important to know. So the mouse is counting from here. If I lower the vertical, you can see that it gets higher, up to 1050. And then for my horizontal, it goes from 0 to 1680. So let's just label these just so we've got those. So that's really good, but what if I want to scale this based on the size of my screen? And that's something that you'll probably want to do, especially if you want to create, say, a mouse theremin. And that's definitely something that I'm going to encourage you to do. I really recommend taking a look at the Insta-Theremin patch from the Macs cookbook. Here is the link to it. I'll just put that down at the bottom of the screen and make it nice and big. There we go. But that is really the trick to it. Here's a look at it right there. Very, very, very simple patch using expression and a couple other packs and DB2A. But you'll notice that it's using screen size. So let's take a look at screen size. This is a really, really cool object, and it doesn't get a lot of love. So screen size outputs the size of your monitor. That's it. You send it a bang, and it outputs the size of your monitor. So let's just connect it up. Give it a load bang so that this will load automatically. And let's see the X and Y coordinates of my monitor. Okay, 0, 0, 1680 horizontal, 1050 vertical. Cool. It worked. So that list is 4 elements long, and it's all going to be integers. It will never be floats. It's always going to be ints. What I can do with that is I can play around with that and we can remap the mouse based on its position in the screen to do something else. Let's do that by creating a new object, unpack, with 4 eyes, because there's going to be 4 integers, and we want them all to be output separately. Next, I'm going to pick up a Pictslider. So Pictslider is a cool object. You can load pictures into it, and that will replace this default dot. But that dot, if I bring an int box down here, its position outputs as a x-coordinate on the left and a y-coordinate on the right. So here is 0, and here's 127. Here's 0 and 127. So what you notice is that while the mouse 0, 0 is the top right corner, or sorry, top left corner of my screen, with Pictslider 0, 0 is the bottom left. It's more how you think about things based on what you learned in algebra. So how do we get this there? I'm glad you asked. Up on the top of Pictslider, we have the horizontal value. And then up on the right, we have the vertical value. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use 2 scale objects. Scale 0, 0, 0, 127. I connect that up there. Now here is the tricky part. The value that I'm scaling is going to be coming in from there, but I don't know if this is necessarily going to be what the horizontal maximum is going to be. So I'm going to connect the high input value to the 3rd outlet. So again, this list, if I unpack it, is going to give me the exact same thing up here. It's going to give me 0 for my minimum, 0 for my minimum vertical, 1680 for my horizontal maximum, and then 1050 for my vertical. So if I re-bang that, you can see as I move my mouse on the horizontal axis, eventually it goes all the way over to the right when I get to 127. That's cool. So let's do the exact same thing with the vertical, but the vertical is going to be a little bit different in terms of the order that I connect things. I'm still going to take the output from Mousestate, connect it up there to scale. But now I need to connect element 4 of the list. You would think that I'd be able to connect it to the high input value, but watch what happens when I do that. Interesting. I got nothing. Well, why? And the answer is because this is 0 up high and that's down low. So let's connect it to the minimum, the low input value. Oh, something just flashed. What happened there? Let's rebang it. There we go. So now, down here at the lower left, and then when I put my mouse up here at the upper right corner of the screen, the Pictslider tracks it perfectly. You're probably wondering why I would want to do that. Well, because this is a really cool patch to use if you want to use your screen or say a Pictslider to control something like panning in surround sound or in quadraphonic at the very least. There are definitely patches we'll be dissecting later in class that do exactly that. So really, make sure that you take a look at the link here, which I've posted in the course page already, to go to the Instant Theremin Using Mouse Position patch from the Max Cookbook, because you will be dissecting that for your next class.